What's up, everybody? Welcome to Culture Shock Therapy, your health equity prescription. I am your host, Dr. Katrina Gipson, emergency medicine physician and health equity thought leader. Today it is Friday, August 16th, 2024, and that means that there are just 81 days until November 5th, 2024, which is Election Day. If you're not registered to vote, or you're not sure where to go vote, just Google it. Ask, am I registered? Where do I register? Based on your location, it'll generate the appropriate websites. If not, just go to vote.gov. You'll be able to figure out if you're registered to vote. And if not, you can get yourself started in time for Election Day. Also, make sure you're making an informed vote. You want to know where the presidential candidates stand on the issues, so educate yourself. Go to ballotpedia.com or CNN.com. You'll see a lot of side-by-side comparisons on where Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump stand on issues as they pertain to you. If you've been watching the news and paying attention, you've seen that Vice President Kamala Harris has been attacked for how she identifies. Is she Black? Is she Indian? But of greater importance, does it matter? And if so, how? Some people have even referred to her as the lesser of two evils compared to former President Trump. Now, these attacks force us to consider how our various identities intersect to inform our experiences, a term known as intersectionality. Professor Kimberly Crenshaw is a leading scholar in the field of critical race theory. She's a professor at Columbia Law School, and she is director for the Center for Intersectionality and Social Policy Studies, as well as a co-founder of the African American Policy Forum, which is a think tank, coined this term, intersectionality. The term describes how race, gender, socioeconomic status intersect with one another, overlap, and inform our experiences and oftentimes our social, health, and economic outcomes. So I know I started off talking about the presidential election and how you can register to vote, and then we pivoted to this new term, intersectionality, some of which I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term, have studied it, and or used it yourself. But why does intersectionality matter to me, and how does it play out in this presidential race, you might be asking? Well, it's an important lens through which we can identify and therefore address and lessen health inequities. For instance, let's talk about maternal mortality rates. In the year 2022, the maternal mortality rate for Black women was 49.5 deaths per 100,000 live births. And this was significantly higher when compared to white women who only experienced 19 deaths per 100,000 live births and Asian women who only experienced 13.2 deaths per 100,000 live births. There are clearly some sort of inequities in outcomes for women of childbearing age based on race. Let's think about how intersectionality takes place in wage gaps. For instance, in the United States, women are paid less than men for the same work with the same qualifications. This has been represented in numerous studies throughout the years. So, for instance, according to the Economic Policy Institute, in 2023, women earned 21.8% less than men on average. And this is when you're taking into consideration women regardless of their race, gender, and or ethnicity. When we start to think about how one's gender and race intersect and it impacts wage gaps, it's even worse. For instance, Black women earn 64% of what non-Hispanic white men earn, and Hispanic women earn only 55% of what non-Hispanic white men earn. We also see these discrepancies in HIV and AIDS rates in Black and Brown communities. These types of statistics show us that the intersectionality of gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, religion inequitably impacts healthcare and economic outcomes. So we've discussed a little bit about how the intersectionality of one's identities may negatively impact their wages or their healthcare outcomes, but how is it impacting this current presidential race and its candidates? If you've been paying attention, you've seen that President Trump and his right-wing Republican supporters have been using a particular race and gender-based vitriol when they are expressing how they feel about Vice President Kamala Harris.
Sir, do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir.
They're weaponizing her race, her gender, how she identifies, and this detracts from the policy issues at hand. It also marginalizes people with multiple racial and ethnic identities who would take offense at this and understand that the intersectionality of their races probably synergistically enhances, or in other cases, maybe it complicates some of their experiences, but it certainly does not detract from their ability to serve as president of the United States or in any other role. Of greatest importance, it detracts from the policy issues at hand. While we're debating back and forth as to whether or not Vice President Kamala Harris can be black and or Indian and what that means for the American people, we're not thinking about how reproductive rights, access to abortion, and IVF are being impacted by these elections and SCOTUS rulings. Or what about immigration and foreign policy, climate change, student loan forgiveness, or what about transgender and gender affirming care? A lot of these issues disproportionately impact BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous people of color. And these are the issues that we need to be focusing on. We need to be educating how each of the candidates feels about these issues and how they're going to vote, who they're going to appoint, and how that's going to impact your everyday life. We have to start to acknowledge how our various identities impact and inform our experiences. While diversity contributes to the richness of our experiences, they're often weaponized to create hierarchies, resulting in social and healthcare inequities, some of which we've discussed earlier. So let's focus on the actionable items. What's your prescription to inform yourself about these healthcare inequities, these policy issues that impact how we live our daily lives? Once again, be sure that you are registered to vote and encourage others to do the same. Inform yourself on the candidate's stance on topics that matter to you. It's important to have not only an opinion, but an educated and well-informed opinion as well. Learn more about how gender, race, ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation impact one's experience. Start by visiting and supporting the African American Policy Forum at aapf.org, or learn about the legal and academic framework known as critical race theory, acknowledging the role of systemic racism in American society. Thank you for joining us on Culture Shock Therapy, your health equity prescription. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Gipson, and please join us shortly as we continue to tackle the health policy issues that impact you and your life.